One of the most fascinating parts about any mythology or work of fiction, in my opinion, is the creation myth and the early universe. And in the Bleach Can't Fear Your Own World novel series, we were given a wealth of information on this specific aspect of Bleach lore. So in this video, I'm going to be analyzing the most enlightening portions of the novels on this era of the Bleach universe, starting appropriately with the Primordial Universe as described to the gathered guardsmen of the Soul Palace by the monk who calls the real name, Ichibei Hyosube. Quote, "In that age, in all of creation, many things were ambiguous. There was no such thing as life or death, and without progress, there could be no retreat. While it swayed to and fro, you see, this was a world where one could only wait for things to chill over the course of 10,000 or even 100 million years. Even becoming a hollow was a part of the circulation of Reishi." End quote. In this passage, we are seeing Ichibei recount his first-hand experience of the primordial world, but what's extremely interesting here is the insinuation that Ichibei, and presumably other ancient beings, lived through various primordial eras where they would wait for creation to quote, chill, over a course of time ranging from 10,000 to 100 million years. In addition, we learn the absolutely wild fact that life and death had yet to come into existence. The insinuation here being that the beings of this time simply continued to exist endlessly in one way or another, whether that be as a hollow, a human soul, or by merging with a hollow soul after being devoured. Now the wording here is ambiguous enough that there's a chance that Ichibei could have only lived for 10,000 years prior to the creation of the modern world, though what is far more heavily implied here is that Ichibei lived through two quote chilling eras of 10,000 and 100 million years respectively, or even more than just two of these eras, a shocking reminder at just how old and powerful the ancient monk actually is. We also learn that becoming a hollow was once a part of the natural cycle of Reishi, implying that hollows have always been a natural state of existence. However, it's not clear if this was the final state of this cycle, or if a hollow soul would further transform or revert back to its human state. But let's move on to the next passage. Quote, "Eventually, however, the hollows began to devour humans. At that point, the circulation stopped, and had things gone on as they were, all the Kanpaku would have been reduced to one gigantic Menos, and the entire world would have come to a halt. But how curious it was, as though the world were rejecting that outcome, suddenly a life was born, a life that could destroy the hollows, turning them to Reishi sand, and once again allowing the world to circulate." End quote. First and foremost, I think it's important to note here that the world in this instance is synonymous with all of creation or the whole cosmos, not a single planetoid. But the most interesting topic in the context of this passage is the hollows of primordial times still had their insatiable hunger for souls, and at this point in creation, the hollows were threatening to devour all of the souls in existence until just a single Menos remained, a catastrophe that would lead to the stagnation of the cosmos. However, what appears to be a higher will of the cosmos was seemingly trying to avoid this outcome, and created a being that could thwart this destructive future. And upon being questioned by a member of his audience, Ichibei confirms that this mysterious life was indeed the Soul King with the following passage. Quote, "Indeed, others, such as myself, with special abilities had appeared, but the Reo was exceptional. It may even be said that he had power that was close to being almighty, omniscient, and omnipotent. However, it was not as if the stagnation of the world had been averted by the simple act of destroying the hollows. The Reo continued in that way to protect the world that would have slowly descended into chaos." End quote. Ichibei confirms here in no uncertain terms that the power of the Soul King prior to his eventual sealing approached that of a true god. And the wording here, especially the usage of the word almighty, seems to imply that this is the undiluted power that would eventually make Yuha a near indomitable force over 1,000,000 years later. Though yet again we received another major revelation, the revelation that a vague higher consciousness in the cosmos seemingly willed the Soul King into existence, an extremely enticing topic of discussion. However, any speculation on this front would probably be better saved for a separate video entirely. Now, for most of the rest of Ichibei's speech here, I'm going to paraphrase just for the sake of time, but I'll put pictures of the actual novel pages on the screen for reference. Following the Ryo's initial destruction of the Hollows, there was a period of time where the Soul King continued to destroy the Hollows that would appear in order to prevent the world from receding into stagnation. However, there were 5 very powerful beings who did not believe that this was a good world, and while it isn't stated, it's very likely that these beings were some of the special beings mentioned by Ichibei. These individuals were none other than the ancient founders of the 5 noble clans of Soul Society. It was these noble founders that would go on to commit what is now known as the original sin. However, each of their motives were different. The Suniyashiro family's founder feared that the Ryo's power would one day be turned against him, and sought to preserve his own power. The ancestor of the unknown 5th noble clan wanted to create a lid for the pit that would later become known as Hell. The Kuchiki clan founder believed that a new world order was needed to guide the world into an era of stability. The Shihoan clan's ancestor believed a greater cycle of souls would be needed to progress the stagnating world forward, and the Shiba clan's ancestor believed it was necessary to explore the purification of hollows, rather than their destruction. Curiously, these varying motives all led them to the same goal, to separate the current world. They would create a physical world, a Reishi world, and a sand paradise that would house the hollows produced by the other 2 worlds. However, not even the combined powers of the 5 founders had the power necessary to accomplish such a task. They needed a power that transcended everything, the power of the Soul King. And while Ichibei did not witness this next part firsthand, it would appear that the Shiba founder attempted to stop the following events, even offering himself in place of the Ryo. The Suniyashiro clan founder sealed the Ryo within a crystal, and using his almighty power as a linchpin, the 5 created the foundations for the new cosmos, the Soul Society, the world of the living, and Hueco Mundo. Souls were given a division between life and death, and through this new cycle of souls, the cosmos moved into a new era. Now, one thing that we learn from this section that I find tremendously interesting and very important to understanding the future of Bleach's narrative is the fact that Hell was already an established territory of the Primordial Universe. This was before the creation of the Soul Society or the world of the living, and even before Hell received its infamous name. In addition, the fact that creating a lid to seal off whatever originally lurked within the pit was deemed to be of the same tier of importance as creating a division between life and death, along with progressing and shaping the cosmos itself, could potentially allude to an ancient threat that surpasses anything seen thus far in the story of Bleach. Keep in mind that during this era, there was no such thing as death or sinners, meaning whatever lies within the depths of hell is far older and more powerful than I think most people realize. Now, as far as the glaring mystery that is the Hellgates being the idea of a thus far unnamed noble family's founder, I actually plan on releasing a theory video on who exactly I think that family is and why in the near future. But concerning the other 4 clans, their motives are fairly on brand with their modern day counterparts. The Suniyashiro are treacherous and greedy as always, the Kuchiki started their eternal pursuit of order, the Shihoan are grandiose and ambitious, and the Shiba do nothing but think of others. Now, as far as how the Suniyashiro founder was able to seal the Ryo, despite the proclaimed nigh-omnipotent power of the Soul King, we are actually told how in the following passage. He may have seen no future where it was avoidable, no matter how he struggled, or he may have detected some kind of hope in the new world. It is impossible to fathom his will, but it seems that the Ryo intentionally did not resist." End quote. Now, we don't know what exactly the implication is here, but ever since the Hell one-shot released, something about this has always felt as though it were alluding to the only hope for the world, in a future where the gates of Hell would shatter and unleash Hell's wrath upon the worlds. The Ryo's humiliation didn't end after his initial sealing, however. The Suniyashiro clan's founder feared that the Ryo would simply break free of his binding, and doubted his non-resistance. And so, leading an unknown number of the other founders, the Suniyashiro's founders set about maiming the Ryo. They carved out his internal organs, they severed his arms that governed stillness and advancement, and even whittled away his legs. They left him in a contradictory state of neither life nor death, a convenient puppet king to use for their benefit. It was after these events that the foundations of the Soul Society would be built, the noble families would rise to power, and the Order of the Soul Reapers would be founded. an establishment that would assume control over the worlds for the next 1 million years to come. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe to stay up to date on Bleach lore videos like this one. Your viewership and your time are both greatly appreciated. Until next time.